This channel isn't just about technology from a developer's perspective. I also want to bring you experiential insights from industry leaders across multiple market verticals. I'm happy to announce today Soundbites, our new show tailored to bring you up close interviews with leaders in business and technology, talking about enterprise trends in technology, market pressures, dress code, corporate culture, you name it. In this week's episode, we talk with Harold Sparrow, CEO of the YMCA. Tune in. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Harold, your history? Um, how'd you get here?
Sure. So, Ed, my full name is Harold Williams Sparrow III. There were two other Harolds ahead of me. I'm born and raised in Boston, Mass, right outside of the city of Boston. But my family came to Boston, Massachusetts right after the Civil War. In our family records, we know that there was a marriage that happened in 1868. And as a matter of fact, there's a park named after my cousin Titus Sparrow in the South End behind the United Methodist Church. So as I am Harold Sparrow III, it's a name I've always taken seriously. It's a name I've always known I had to kind of uphold. And I represent the men that came before me, being my father and my grandfather, who were men of integrity and character and substance.
Awesome. And how did you? So you're the CEO of the YMCA,
That's
right?
correct.
So how did you get there? Like what was the process?
It's interesting, Ed, because it was a long process. And in that, it more or less came into focus as I went through my career.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wanted to lead a not for profit organization. I knew that my call in life was really to create opportunities for people to leverage resources that could create efficacy that would change their lives. But when I first started, I didn't quite know how I was going to get there. So I always took jobs and opportunities that came to me. But if I go all the way back, I would say that I've always had mentors around me or a tribe around me that supported me. Basketball, I was a decent basketball. In high school, I was a decent basketball player. There's a guy named Demi Rogers who pretty much took me under his wing and gave me an opportunity to work as a sky cap at the airport, a guy carrying bags. Later on, when I went to college, when I came out, I went to work for the airlines. And through my travel with the airlines, I worked in sales and customer service, and I worked on a ramp loading bags. I flagged in planes. I cleaned planes. So I think at an early age, I learned that whatever happens, sometimes you have to pivot. You have to take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you, be humble about it, and keep moving, and never lose sight of your dreams or it is that you wish to be. So it was a process. It was an evolution. Um, but I knew after I had gotten married that I wanted to lead a small not-for-profit. And the opportunity came at the YMCA, honestly, by accident. A friend of mine ran the local Y in my community in Boston called the Roxbury Y, and he asked me to serve on the board. And I really didn't want to because I knew the players on that board, and they had been there since forever. They were much older than he and I. When I say older, they were in their 80s and their 90s, and
Oh,
so they were a bit stodgy in their thought and style. And I told him I would serve, and I went to one or two meetings, and then he took another opportunity and left. And I was in graduate school at that time, and they asked me, did I want to interview for the job? And I did. I ended up getting the job. So that's how I started at the YMCA, and that was 26, 27 years ago.
what kind of educational background do you have to get this kind of position? Does it matter? Is it business? Is it administration?
I think you have to have an educational background, whether it's business administration, whether it's a Bachelor of Arts, whether it's a Bachelor of Science. I think it's important to go to school. I think an education is the best program because it teaches you, one, critical thinking skills, two, how to discipline yourself for study, three, which is importantly, is the skills of writing and communication, how to make a reasonable point. And I just think it's important for young people to get an education first. And because of that, now I graduated from Tufts University, which is a liberal arts school in the greater Boston area. I then went back to Cambridge College and got my master's degree in education because I really wanted to be a facilitator and a trainer. I thought that's the way that was the road or the path that I was going to take, but it just didn't work out that way. But at the end of the day, in order to be a leader in a not-for-profit organization, I think you have to be clear about your vision, be clear about your purpose, understand and have values, character is important, and then it's really judgment. And then really it's about how do you facilitate a process to convene people, arrive at a common vision or shared vision of where you would like your organization to go, work on mutual agreements that we all can agree on, and then stick to that plan and move the agenda forward. Now, it doesn't always happen that way. Mistakes happen. Often in organizations, there's a lot of other hidden agendas, or people have other ideas about why they're at the table or where they would like to see things go. But that's life. That's how you learn.
So, what are some of the internal business processes that it takes to run a YMCA? I'm assuming there's just a gym component and the software associated with it, and then there's got to be there's programs, there's grant writing. Like, what kind of professional fields are out
Sure.
there for a person to?
Why don't I give you an overview and I'll give you an example. So I would say that the YMCA is we are a not-for-profit organization. That doesn't mean we don't make a profit. What it means is the surplus that we have at the end of the year, we put back into the organization. The YMCA is, I think, one of the most structured and disciplined not-for-profits across the United States. In our case here in Hartford, Connecticut, we're a 29, almost $30 million a year organization. And we really have four revenue streams. Membership, a traditional membership at the Y, where you go and join and swim and go to the gym and take Zumba classes. What we call programs, which is swim classes, gymnastics classes, aerobics classes. Child development or child care, where we have families that are in our preschool, after school programs, summer camps, overnight camps, and day camps. And then last but not least, philanthropy or fundraising, right? So those are the four main revenue streams of which we intentionally, diligently, consistently focus on each and every day to make sure that we hit our benchmarks. So we put together a budget. We then review the budget process with our finance committee, and the finance committee is very thoughtful about our assumptions. Are they doable? They really think through what could be some of the roadblocks and how can they help. Once the finance committee is satisfied that we've put together a manageable and achievable budget that's a little bit aspirational, so it's not just a layup, it's then presented to the board for a vote, and then the board votes on it. After that, what we do is we lay out an operational plan for the year as to how we're going to hit our benchmarks every single day, or I should say every single month. But at the YMCA, in terms of discipline, which many not-for-profits, their model's a little bit different, we have a 30-day close. So at the end of the day, we look at our 30-day close, we look at our revenue, our expenses, our net, and are we meeting our benchmarks? And if not, is it significant? Is it a blip? Is there something that happened? Maybe there was some payments that went out early or some revenues that are coming in late. But at that point in time, we manage it each and every month till the end of the year. And that's how it works. So at the level where if you or your family were to come into the Y, you would buy a membership, and your wife might want to go to a Zumba class. If you have children, they might want to go take a swim class. But we project what those numbers are on a daily basis because behind it on the expense side, we have to staff our programs to meet the needs of our customers in order to provide a quality experience. One thing that most people probably don't know is that the YMCA's that have the highest membership retention rate and the highest usage rate is ones that are extremely clean. So cleanliness is extremely important to us. So every single night, we clean our YMCA's from top to bottom to make sure that they sparkle. And that makes a big difference to our members, and it also gives us a sense of pride as to how we present ourselves at the beginning of the day.
One thing that I've always admired about the YMCA was some of the activities they do around. I wouldn't call it it's not philanthropy. It's more like just community stuff, right? Basketball programs, right, for the kids, fielding a team, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
I went there one time to your YMCA in particular. They had volleyball.
Yes.
They had everyone playing, all ages,
Well, it's been said that the YMCA is the great American melting pot. I believe that 8 out of 10 Americans have had this is a statistic, have had an experience with the YMCA, whether it was through swim lessons, day camp, summer camp. But we're well known across the country. We're in over 700 associations across this country. We started way back in 1863, so we've been around a long time, well over 170 years.
Wow.
And so what we have is trust. We have evolved, but you're absolutely right. It's where families come to meet. It's where teenagers come to work on team programs, whether that's college access programs, or college achievement programs. It's where teens come for peer leadership. It's where seniors come to play pickleball, work out, or just a sense of community. So we're a community-based organization, but within this organization are a number of different communities. And it's interesting. So, for example, a little secret of the Y is lap swim, and to reserve your lap lane is a big deal. And so there's a lot of people that make sure that they reserve their lap lane so they can get their swim in at their certain time every day. And if they don't get that swim in their lap lane, they're not happy. Now, that doesn't mean they take it out on us, because sometimes it's on them, or sometimes it just doesn't work out. But they will tell you, this is where I find my peace. This is where I come to manage through all of the kind of stuff that goes on in my everyday life. So there's a million different stories at the YMCA, and that's what makes it so satisfying, is that we are relevant within the communities that we serve, and we are different in how we serve our communities across the footprint of the greater Hartford community.
Now, what kind of advice do you have for young men starting out, looking to get into leadership? And how do you feel that they should present themselves in helping to get to that point?
I think if you're a young man, the first thing to do is to take a job, any job, and to show up every day with intentionality and discipline, and show that you can do the work, and always be ready to do something more. Because in order to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower, right? You have to be able to look at instructions, listen to instructions, accept feedback, be able to pivot or make decisions that you might have previously thought was the right road to go down, and it wasn't. But most importantly for yourself, you need to have a vision of where you want to be 5 or 10 years from now. So myself, my vision early on was I wanted to be a leader of a not-for-profit organization. Then I backed out. What were the steps to get there? So knowing that I had a Bachelor of Arts, well, everybody has a Bachelor of Arts. I wanted to get a master's education or a master's degree behind me. But then I also wanted to put myself in positions of opportunity and leadership and challenges that would help me grow, so that I could lead and be thoughtful and have an impact on my community.
And do you feel that in your field, do you feel that there are enough people getting into it for the right reasons, like getting into it to be almost like servant leaders, or do you feel like people who end up in your position are sort of capitalists that are just running an organization?
I can't speak for other organizations, but when COVID hit, we had to push the reset button. And so we hired a firm to come in and do a survey of our people across the footprint of the organization, from the top to the bottom. And we asked a simple question: why do you want to work here? And the answer that came back almost every single time was, I want to take my skills and talents, I want to join with others, and I want to make a change in our community. So I think for the people that work within our association, they're there because they want to help other people. They want to save, change, and transform lives. There was a book out years ago by an author by the name of Rick Warren called A Purpose-Driven Life. And the first sentence was, it's not all about you. And I would say that from what I can see and hear from the conversations within my organization, from the behaviors that have been demonstrated, the people on our team, it's not all about them. They do want to help others. Now, that's not to say that they don't have their own aspirations. That's not to say that they don't want to move up. But at their core, they're there because they want to help other people. And in this day and age, we have competitive not-for-profit salaries, but in the for-profit field, it's night and day.
Yeah.
And our margins are a lot smaller
Okay.
as well.
And if you were hiring a executive team, right, like a vice president, what would you be looking for from somebody like that?
I would be looking for someone who has vision, I think has excellent decision-making skills, somebody who is thoughtful and has integrity and or character, and somebody that can fit with the team. Oftentimes, at a certain level, if you're going to go to the C-suite, everybody has the same skill set as you, right?
Yes.
But what's the difference what is the difference? It's emotional intelligence, it's the ability to read the room, it's ability to compromise and to get along with others on the team, and it's the ability to be humble enough to maybe take your own personal ideas, goals, and ambitions, and maybe not put them at the top of the list, but make sure that the team gets a win. And oftentimes, when we look across the history of what's going on in this country, it wasn't that people weren't bright or capable; it was issues of character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Enron, back what was it, 2007, 2008, when the country had a significant recession, it was about integrity.
Yeah.
They were cheating.
Yeah.
The banks, when the banks went south, it
Yeah.
wasn't that they weren't smart businessmen. It was
Yeah.
about integrity. They were
Yeah.
cheating.
Yeah.
So when you look, in my experience, my professional experience, when we have seen major shifts in this country, it's not about that people can't uh, dot the i's, cross the t's, and do the math. It comes down to integrity, and do they make the right decisions, and then they have the intestinal rebar, or the rebar in their soul, to make judgments that we're going to help the organization versus in the short term may benefit themselves in the short term, and that's life.
Now, do you think that the future of the well, let me ask it this way: what do you think is the future of the YMCA? Like with children being more living more in a digital world, right? Like not necessarily going out even, right, or going out very little. With society shifting towards digital, like relationships are people are meeting each other online now.
Absolutely.
Right? Where do you see in 50 years and 60 years as the trajectory of America or the world continues to change the YMCA? Like, do you see it turning digital? Do you see it being a digital service? Do you think you'd always have your brick and mortars?
So I think it's a combination of both. I mean, in order to be relevant, you need to adapt to the times, and so clearly, the digital advances that are going on in this country today are significant. I think Chat GPT or the whole AI will change some of the work that we do at the Y, but not all the work that we do at the Y. We're a relationship-based organization. And here's the thing, Ed. Humans are social people. I mean, we're like bees. We live in a big hive. We live in communities. We live within our families. But relationships are important to us. And at the core of the YMCA, that is who we are. We're a community-based organization where you can meet other like-minded people, such as yourself, to be a part of that tribe, where you can, lay down your, take a mask off or two and relax and enjoy things that you like to do or that you like to enjoy. And I also think that in terms of our child care and after-school programs, they will always be relevant. What we know and what we've experienced, and I'll speak from my own life experience, as a father of 3 children, when my wife had to go back to work, the stress and the anxiety of actually leaving her child with another person or organization was extreme, and she's not alone in that. It's a major issue for many families across this country. But for the YMCA as a trusted organization that takes care of your children, that trains out people about child abuse prevention, that constantly looks on compliance issues to make sure that your child will be safe, that's significant. America is aging. So yes, there's AI and there's different applications that you can do online, but people still want to go to a place where they can swim. People still want to go to a place where they can work out. They still like the chats that happen in the locker room or over coffee in the lobby. So I think as long as we have a place to congregate and we do have brick and mortar, that we will continue to be relevant. Our programs might change. The technology will definitely change, but at the end of the day, I think we'll be around. We've been around for over 170 years now, and I see a very bright future for the YMCA.
So you've spoken to me often about what's going to happen after career-wise, where you're going to do more leadership and leadership training and things of that nature, or that's one of the things you've, if it's all right for me to talk about.
Let's talk about it.
All right. So do you want to give a little bit of an excerpt of...
Well, here's the thing, right? In terms of my next steps, I think it's important for you to have a plan. I see many people whenever they decide to retire, that if they just stop doing what they every day, their lives become empty, and their life loses purpose, and they have not a great quality of life, and they're miserable. So that's not going to be my choice. I'll keep myself involved, I think, in teaching and education and training.
Mhm.
And I'm, working through that right now. I'm preparing myself when the time comes when when I do retire, or I'm thinking about retiring. I'll be able to leverage my strategies and plans so that I will continue to remain relevant and helpful. And so,
Okay. And do you have a general idea of how you would approach, for example, coaching or, or
yes,
teaching a person?
yes,
I mean, that you would want to
sure.
share? Yeah.
Well, I think when we coach people, it's really about appreciative inquiry. Like
Okay.
most people understand the questions or kind of what their challenges are. So we want to make sure that we ask the right questions and have them think it through. Oftentimes people get stuck because they don't necessarily have a very thoughtful or partner that they can trust that can give some perspective to help them move to the next level, whatever those challenges may be.
Mhm. Now, are you a man of faith?
I am.
How do you feel? Has your faith informed your career? Do you feel like it's been an aspect of it in any kind of way?
Oh, I think my faith has been the most important thing in my career.
Mhm.
The scripture says we walk by faith, not by sight. And there are certain things about believing, in God. In my case, I'm a Christian, so Jesus Christ. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that are out of your control. And a pastor said to me one time, he says, Harold, it's only when you walk to the end of your faith and you believe that you can see God move. When you know it's not you, your skills, your talents, your abilities, your gravitas that you bring to the table, but it happened just because God got you there.
Mhm.
So I've had several of those experiences over the course of my career and in my personal life as well. And so it's extremely important. And I would say at the YMCA, we're, we're built on the trilogy of spirit, mind, and body. And
Mhm.
often today, because of technology, I think humans have gotten away from the identifying with the spiritual aspect of who we are. C.S. Lewis once said, "I'm not a human having a spiritual experience. I'm a spirit having a human experience."
Yeah.
And so, at the end of the day, this energy, this thing that's uniquely Harold or uniquely Ed, just doesn't dissipate or go away. It goes wherever it may be or go to, but that is a huge part. It is who I
Mhm.
am. I met a man, I won't mention his name, that I've known. He was a very successful businessman in Connecticut and New York. He had a heart attack on the table. And he said he left, he had an out of body experience, saw himself in the operating room and said, God, please don't let me go yet. I have more work to do. I will only do good. And boom, he came back. And so for him, he knew that God was there because he was dead on
Wow.
that table. For my personal life, my dad had heart disease.
Mhm.
And so he had had a heart attack. He was in the hospital. And so I had gone in, I was his primary. And so I wanted to meet with him and the doctor. And the doctor said to my father, who's Harold, he said, "Listen, Harold, not good. Like, really not good. You got to go get your affairs in order." My dad's like, "How much time do I have, Doc?" He goes, "I don't know. 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, I don't know. But,
Wow.
like, this is it." So my father, who was an agnostic, did not believe in God. And I was then and was very active in my church, still am a man of faith. Uh, my father started crying. So my father was a retired police officer in old school police. I mean, my dad was like made out of nuts and bolts, and he was those old school guys that never believed in crying, never believed in showing emotion, just rock solid, strong, stoic. No matter what happens, we never break down. And he really, like, he lost it. And I had never seen that happen to my dad. And I asked him, "Daddy, are you upset? Are you afraid to die?" He says, "No, no, no, I'm not afraid to die. I'm ashamed." And I said, "Well, why are you ashamed?" He said, "Because of the divorce and because I blew it with my two daughters. I feel I just failed them, and I can't forgive myself for that." And I said, "Well, Dad, I'll tell you what, why don't we say a prayer that God will heal you, and we'll just take it one day at a time." And he laughed, and he said, "Well, son, I know that you believe that." And I said, "Well, why don't you believe that I believe, and we'll call it good enough." And laid hands on him and just said, "Dear God, please heal my father. Please have him live long enough to see the new baby coming." My wife was pregnant at the time. And amen. Got up, checked out. The next day, went with him to the lawyer, the will, and did all that stuff. Brought him back to see the doctor 2 weeks later. And the doctor's name was Harold Solomon. I was the chief cardiologist at Beth Israel in Boston. Ran my father through the test and said, I've never seen anything like this in my life, Harold. Your heart has gotten significantly stronger.
Wow.
He said, he was stuttering. And so my dad was like, okay. He says, so what do you want me to do? He says, well, let's keep taking the meds and see how it goes. So my father did that. After that, he went and met with my daughter, my sisters, went to all the games the grandkids had, did everything that you would want to do that he missed out on because of the divorce.
Yeah.
And then I forgot, I asked God to give him 5 years. He gave him 7.
Wow.
And then when his time came, I said, Daddy, are you ready? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready, son, I'm good.
Wow.
So for me, that was a miracle. I saw it. And when my father passed, and his doctor, Harold Solomon, he was much younger than my dad, probably like a 20-year difference. And he came to the wake. And when he came, he said, I don't do wakes. I never come to wakes or funerals as a physician with my arrogance. This is failure. This means I didn't do my job. This is the antithesis of everything I am. But I have to say that Harold Sprout was a miracle.
Wow.
So when we talk about faith, I think that, one, you have to believe that you believe, and then ask for help, and then God will move.
Now, do you think that the YMCA, I think, stands for Young Men's
Christian Association,
Christian
that's
Association?
correct.
So, in this modern era where it seems like society has shifted very strongly towards just an agnostic view, if not a totally atheist view of God, how does that play? And how do you reconcile that as the leader?
So this is how I reconcile, and it's interesting, Ed. In the Northeast, it's very secular. So we're a not-for-profit organization that provides services. But prior to my conversation about, well, why do people come here? It's because they want to make a difference. And I believe it's a spiritual calling on their behalf, this is my opinion, about why they want to do this work. In other parts of the country, Young Men's Christian Association, the C is a capital C. It's huge. And so there's Bible studies. They talk about the Bible. They talk about Christ in their business meetings, in their staff meetings. Often when you go to check in at the front desk, they have little fortune cookies with scriptures in them.
Wow.
So it really depends on where you're at. West Coast, again, is probably more secular. So I would say the national office in its wisdom has just kind of said, look, however you want to define it by the leaders in your town, it's okay with you. Now, we did start off as a Young Men's Christian Association in England. First YMCA in North America was in Montreal. The second one was in Boston. I'm sorry. First one in the United States was in Boston. The second one was in Hartford, Connecticut. So we are the second oldest YMCA in the country.
Wow.
That being said, I personally think I have DNA in my family tree, right? I mean, I am my dad's son. I think when you birth an organization, you may want to deny that DNA and say, no, that's not me. But it's still there, whether you accept it or not.
Yeah.
And how it manifests itself in the day-to-day organization or publicly, it's really not up to me. That's not my issue. My issue is how I come to work, create a fair opportunity, a fair and balanced workplace for our employees, and then give them a chance to succeed. And the other side of that coin is there's evidence in a history where religion or religious institutions have imposed their ideology or their theology to hold people back.
Yeah.
And that happens. So I think we have to work through those differences. We have to be very thoughtful about it. And at the end of the day, be fair as well.
Okay. Given that it's more secular here, you're saying that basically you just kind of keep it more on the community side.
We do. So we have a marketing team that we work with within our organization. We work with we have a contract with a marketing company called Levin and Fix. So the way it works is a straight marketing campaign. We go out into the community. We talk about what the needs are. We talk about what it is that they're looking for in the community, what they like about the Y. And then we structured our marketing campaign to those themes so that it's about education, it's about safety, it's about fun, it's about joining, it's about community. So those are the themes that we have. you know, really, I think in Connecticut, most people don't think about the C in the YMCA at all. It's more of a community-based organization.
Yeah, I don't think that until someone told me what it stood for,
Hmm.
I didn't see the YMCA as that. I just saw it as just, a gym basically,
Yeah.
or a community, so like a community, center of sorts, something like that. In fact, I think I took my first programming class in a YMCA in Tallahassee,
Really.
Florida. Yeah.
But and it really
Visual
depends.
Basic.
There is some meetings we have, or I've been in other YMCA meetings across the country where they start the meeting off in prayer. I mean, invocation means to invoke the Holy Spirit. And so
Hmm.
they'll say, well, who's going to do the invocation? And it's a prayer. And it's a general prayer. It's not too prescriptive, but it's, God bless us and help us
Yeah.
and inform our decision making. Amen.
Yeah. That's a modern day Christian organization. You would think that you would think that those had been ran out of every town.
Well, in some places it's much more easier than others, and
Yeah.
in some rooms it's much more easier than others. And it's happened at my Y, and many people are okay with it, and some people say, "Hey, geez, oof, oof, that made me feel a little awkward."
Hmm.
Um,
How what are some of the ways that you think that as an organization you can innovate or improve the experience of the everyday user?
sure. So I think the best way to innovate an organization is to work on a strategic plan with your volunteers, your staff, and your team.
Hmm.
And so it's funny you should ask that because one of our pillars will be innovation and new business strategies.
Hmm.
But in order to innovate, innovation happens. Let me put it this way: any new innovation has not started with an established organization, because the established organizations or establishment is just that they're established, it's cemented, and they kind of like the way they're doing their thing. So when you look at Spotify, Napster started that, but no one saw Napster coming. It
Yeah.
didn't start at WR. It didn't start at ABC or CBS or NBC. It started with a young college kid thinking, "Hey, he didn't even know he could do it." They
Yeah.
said they said if he really thought about how he could do it, he probably wouldn't have tried, but he didn't, and he did. So when I think about change, it's usually, particularly for organizations like the YMCA, it's outside entities that kind of enforce external ideas or thoughts that inform the internal decision making. So I'd say one way that I know we're looking for innovation is around AI,
Hmm.
and how do we incorporate into the work that we're doing. And then we don't know what new programs will pop up. One example could be pickleball. 5 years ago, pickleball, no one even knew what the heck it was. And now all of a sudden, it's one of the number top-rated sports across the country.
Yeah, I know.
People can't get into their gyms because they want to get pickleball time.
Yeah.
So the Y has always been open to new innovation, new ideas around program, and how do we work with that. And I think that our team, our people will be open to that. And we've been very thoughtful about how we can pivot, but also to create a community where people are open to the ideas of, well, hey, what's next, and how can we do better?
So in the technology world, we sort of went down the path over the last 10, 15 years of basically this concept of user stories and user driven everything, right? Like,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
thinking of everything as a product and thinking of how people interact with that product. I mean, the YMCA is so complex because it's multiple sort of businesses attached together. So I don't know if a program manager at a YMCA would be similar to a product owner at at like a company or a Microsoft or something like that.
Sure.
So how do they relate, or how do you relate those kinds of skills?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Ed. Earlier, I talked about one of our revenue streams is philanthropy,
Hmm.
and a proven methodology to raise money is what we call telling the YMCA story.
Hmm.
So every year we have an annual campaign. Our annual campaign goal this year is $1 million. But we train our people not to say, hey, we're the Y, we're a great organization, but tell them what makes us great. So what is your Y story that you want to share with another individual, and then make that ask? Whether it's you're a person in a childcare program, or you're somebody at the front desk, or you're myself, the CEO. So I think storytelling is a very time-tested, time-worn strategy, plan, approach of engagement, and time-tested to be true. Because when we tell stories, we open up the vulnerable side of ourselves. When we tell stories, it opens folks up to our humanity. When we tell stories, it helps individuals connect in new and different ways that we may not be aware of. So I think storytelling is very relevant for our YMCA experience now. Um, we we work at it to make sure that we're continue to do it. And it's like anything else, when I first started with the Y, we always focused on telling stories. We've kind of gotten away with that. But this year, in terms of our fundraising development strategies, we're working on storytelling. And at the end of March, I'll be taking myself and about 7 of our new executive directors to NATO, which is the National Alliance of YMCA Development Professionals, to work on fund development. And there's a workshops on storytelling. So that's what we do. I think it's very important, and I look forward to sharing my wine stories wherever I go. And there's a lot of them. Ed, if you're ever hanging out with a lot of wine professionals and you want to have a good laugh, just say, "Hey, what's your craziest wine story?" And it is bizarre, the things that people will tell you. It is hilarious.
Okay. We've talked about leadership, and you shared a number of your successes and success stories with us. What about what about failures or mistakes? How do you deal with that? How do you handle that? And how do you rise above and move beyond that as a leader?
Sure. I think that that's when you learn the most is when you actually fail. And so we do have success. I have been successful in my career and I've been happy. But the times when I had failures that really failed, it knocks you down and it makes you think, well, what did I do wrong? And it created, at least in me, it creates the environment for you to examine your steps, where you missed it, where you could have corrected. It also humbles you. Maybe you're too arrogant. Maybe you weren't thoughtful about the rooms that you were in. Maybe you were not accepting of the culture. And oftentimes, it's the little things that trip us up, right?
Hmm.
So I think the failure is important. It's almost like if you come to the Y and you go to the gym, in order to get stronger, you have to go to muscle fatigue. So if you can do 10, and at the end of 10, then you go to 11 and 12, and 12 is the least you have at that weight. Next time you come back, you might want to go to 13 or 14. But when you get to 15, you're going to have to up the weight. And I think that we learn a lot from our failures. I think we learn the best from our failures. Earlier I talked about the mortgage incidents, loan incidents that happened a few years ago. And out of that came the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, if I remember
Yes.
correctly,
Yep.
right? About how to make sure that we kept our institutions strong.
Yeah.
And I also think out of our mistakes, we learn what mistakes we made in judgment and decision making. Oftentimes, I was too nice. I think that there were some employees that I knew shouldn't have hired. And then when they made a mistake, gave them another chance. When honestly, I think if we had been thoughtful about it in the beginning and more disciplined to say, we're sorry, this is just not going to work for you, it would have been easier on them and easier on us. So I think in terms of leadership development, when it's gone wrong for me, Ed, is when I didn't listen to that spirit inside of me and said, Harold, no, don't do this. And so I would tell people to listen to that little voice that tells you this is going to be a problem.
Hmm.
Because in my experience, every time that has happened, it has come true. And that's sometimes our ego, we think we can overcome it or we can fix it, or maybe we want to be more empathetic. But if you know that you know that you know, it's best to listen to that voice. And then I think leadership development is a process. The leader I am today is not the leader I am when I came here 7 years ago. It's not the leader I was 20 years ago. So I do think that there's something to be said for experience, life experience, mistakes, poor judgments. And the issue really is it's around resilience. How do you come back? And what did you do to come back? And then how are you more different now? And, in life, whatever you do, it's not going to be easy. So you're going to have some grit. You're going to have to hang in there. You're going to have to prevail through some storms. And that's how you get stronger because it builds your confidence. And it gives you a sense of worth. And at the end of the day, you're able to persevere and cross that finish line, whatever that finish line may be for you. In America, we have Kwanzaa, and one of the principles of Kwanzaa is Kujichagulia, which is around self-determination. So it goes back to you having a vision for yourself, a purpose for yourself. And that's not to say that that opportunity for you at that space and time is not a good opportunity and that you won't learn skills that will transcend your professional career. But you can't let people put you in a box. So I strongly feel that we should not put people in boxes, if that's the question that you're asking me. I mean, then I was a sky cat, and then I went on the ramp and I lifted bags. I came back from that, worked in after school programs. But all of those skills that I learned, those experiences that I had in small not for profits, helped me be the leader that I am today. So I would say to anybody that's starting out in their career, don't say no to any opportunity, how small it is. Get your foot inside the door. Do a good job and show them your worth. And then once you have shown them the worth, and two, you know your worth, then opportunities will come your way. Honestly, Ed, I think the only job I ever really applied for was this job in Connecticut to be a CEO. Every other opportunity I had, someone knocked on my door and said, "Hey, I see the work you're doing. Hey, I heard about you. Listen, we got this opportunity. Do you want it to happen?" And I went back and thought about it, and I said, yes. So if you're excellent and you're excelling, other people see that, and other people are looking for, who doesn't want to have a superstar on their team? So I would say to particularly young people that are starting out, I could understand your frustration, particularly if you're aspirational, because not everybody is, right? There are some people, they want to work in public service or they want to work for the DPW, and I'm not putting them down, but that's what they want to do, and they're good with that, and that's okay. But if you're not built that way, and you know you're not built that way, then you do the best job that you can while you're in it. You show your worth, and then you look for the opportunity to move, and people will notice you. And it goes back to the spirit I talked about. We talk about body, mind, and spirit. Spirit attracts spirit. So the essence of who you are, you will attract these opportunities, and they will come to you.
Okay. So where can people go to find out more about the Wilson Gray?
Well, the Wilson Gray
YMCA?
YMCA is on 400 Albee Avenue. I'm doing this from memory. But they should go to the website at the Greater Hartford YMCA. And I should say, Ed, so in the YMCA Greater Hartford, we have 12 different YMCAs across the footprint of Greater Hartford. We're in 52 cities and towns. I said that our budget's about $29, $30 million a year. But the other thing is, we're a great employer. In the summertime, we are the largest youth employer in the state of Connecticut. We have 5,000 kids working for us. That's pretty much incredible.
Yeah.
At the Wilson Gray YMCA, our annual payroll there is well over $1 million. There's well over 100 people that work for us there. I would argue that I don't think there are many employees in the north end of Hartford that have 100 employees between full and part-time that are doing that. So when people look at not-for-profits, they tend to kind of put them in a category like it's a little softer, not as business-like organization that's not doing as much. But I think that we're helping our community. I think we're creating paychecks and resources and revenue that people are bringing home to their families. And we are a cornerstone and a mainstay of the communities we serve, not only in the north end of Hartford or downtown Hartford, but in East Hartford and Farmington and Ellington and Pomfret. We're all over this state, and we're doing good work. So.